Okay, I'd like to call the December 8th Budget Committee meeting to order at 9:05 with a roll call, please.
Betsy Colburn.
Brian Winslow.
Tom Chase.
Dan McNally.
Grace Mattern.
Betty Smith.
Hal Kreider.
Ted Wilkinson.
Michael Moore.
Eric Buckland.
Brett Hall.
Mike Jobin.
Bob Young. Bob Young.
Scott Breyer.
Ginger Dole, and our recording secretary, Linda. Joe McCaffrey is excused today, and we are all set to go. The minutes from our last meeting, it was a long meeting, so those will be mailed to us, and we'll address those when we get them. I would ask you all, though, when you do receive them, please review them as quickly as possible while some details may still be fresher in your minds, as opposed to waiting until the night before the meeting when we do them, maybe a month from now, when things aren't quite as fresh in your minds. And Wednesday night, when we come back, we'll take up the minutes that you got in your packet. So, we start with the school's proposed 2019-2020 operating budget, and I'll turn this over to Brian.
Great. Good morning. Do you want me to introduce?
Oh, yes, let's introduce everybody who's up on stage today.
So we've got three school board members up here. If you don't know, Officer Wells, Keith McGuigan, and Dave Ruth. Nate Byrne is our student services director. Jocelyn Young is our principal, and Scott Runing is our superintendent. He's walking around. So.
Scott, you want to... You have your mic? Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed Robert O'Sullivan. He's our business administrator.
Yes, he's in the back row. He
Sorry about
decided
that. Thank you,
back
Mr.
there.
Chase.
All set.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to try to do this with a microphone in my hand. So there's been some updates. For instance, the TAs were ratified by the association and the board, so I have those for you. There were some minor adjustments to the budget, so I've updated budgets. And there's some other documents. We modeled it off of last year's, and last year's staff list was the year before's, and the support staff went to do that, and then we noticed we didn't have the right staff list for you, so we've updated that. So I've got a packet in front of you, and it should be all set up the same way. So if you turn it over, and we'll start in the back section. So if you go to staff list, salary and benefits,
Please.
and open your rings, and pull that spreadsheet out. Staff salary and benefits. Almost in the back. Yeah. If you want to pass the old ones down towards me, I can recycle them for you. And then put the two spreadsheets on the top of your packet into that section.
Both these spreadsheets? Yep.
The next section that you're going to fill is your 2019-2022 to 2022 NESPA CBA section. It's empty. You're going to take...
Wait, go a little slower, Scott.
2019,
Okay.
2022.
Oh, thank you.
What are we looking for?
You have a tab that says 2019-2022 NESPA CBA,
Yep.
and beneath that tab it's empty. He has something for you to insert.
Thank you.
This document in that section.
Here, Ted. At least I think it goes there.
The next two documents are your Northwood School District estimated tax rate, and then a working draft of your revenues. That's the next section. Tax I passed out.
So which tab is
What
that?
you want to do is put that
Tax impact, thank you.
right here. Yeah, you want to put it in the tax impact section.
Got it. Is this, and is
So
this,
that's now two sheets.
taking these
Right here.
One?
If you look up here, I'm holding them up for you.
is it a
And
replacement?
the old one can come out.
The old one comes out.
Is it just that one
Does does the revenue go with it?
Yes, yeah,
I put that one in already.
that's all part.
Oops, sorry. It's not like a ballot box. So 3 pages go in there, right?
Correct.
Are you on the school board? I am. Nice to meet you. I didn't catch all the names as they were announced.
Well, actually, the next is your revenue report. That can, if you know where it is, that's fine, but it should go in with your current financials. This way. And you can pull, you know, no, there isn't one there. So.
Put it under tax.
That just goes in with it, we don't take anything out?
I get it.
I don't know. The tax rate goes in with the financial, right? Just goes in with it?
The tax rate goes, yeah,
I think
the
you
revenues go.
Yeah, insert it into that section.
You're supposed to spill coffee on it too.
Where do you want us to put the revenue?
That can go in with your current financials, which is right in front of that. It's all in reverse order. And then when you're ready, I'm going to change the rules on. So your next section is your default budget. I hope that, or I expect that some people have taken notes on the default budget. So just take the new default budget. I would make a mark on the one that's in your binder, so you know what it is, and then put your new default budget on top of it.
These are dated, right? The dates would be different, right?
Plus the
And if you don't want your default budget,
explanatory.
you can throw it in here.
So the new default budget.
What did it call me? Exactly, let's do it.
And then your last task is same set of rules for your operating budget, right in the front. You can just put the new one on top and make a mark on your old one in case.
Hanging chads. Yeah,
I'm
got
just
a bunch of them.
gonna be able to follow my notes.
No, they're not hanging actually. They're stuck. They're stuck.
And now they're all over the table.
Yeah.
See, I even went through it and looking at my budget.
thank you, Scott. That was very well done. I bet you did, yes. That's why when I called, I couldn't get anybody to answer the phone, right? Yes, you were practicing.
All right, let's go.
Everybody's set? I want to start until everybody's got their paperwork in a row here. Okay, Brian, turn it over to you and
Okay, great. There's a few sections we're going to have to hold off on while we're waiting for the joint board to vote, which we anticipate to be on Monday. So I know we've already scheduled a meeting for Wednesday the 12th, and hoping that we can address the things we have to skip at that time. But I'd like to start with the bottom line for regular education. This is on page 4 of 26, and I'd like to move the number of $2,485,373.17.
Second.
okay, we have a motion, Brian, a second from Betty. Does anyone have questions?
We're
Betsy?
working off the new.
Can we go
We're
through,
working off the new one
I
that we
am.
just got.
Yep.
can we go through, page by page and do all the, any explanations or anything before we start moving?
Okay, we need to, what we can do is motion and second the section and then go to the first page of that section, and otherwise, we're gonna be going through it 3 times.
With the town, we went through everything and then
The
back to
town was-
motions.
Let's do it Betsy's way. We'll do it page by page.
So we're looking for just the deltas between what was handed out.
If you have any questions on page 1,
Okay, I misunderstood.
Shall we withdraw the motion?
let's withdraw the motion.
Withdrawn.
Okay, withdrawn.
So
Okay. We're just gonna go through the budget. Page 1, does anyone have questions? Page 2, does anyone have questions?
I have a question on that.
Then your question is?
When we go through them, we got something new this morning. Can we ask, or I'd ask that Brian just highlight what the deltas are between what we got last week and what we have presented to us just now? Because I assume what we just got presented is what we're voting on.
What we will be voting on, correct?
Yes. So if we're voting on something that we just got today, I want to make sure I understand what the deltas are. Because,
And, yeah, I know where you're going with it. I don't know if,
I mean, it
let
doesn't,
me defer to Scott for a moment.
Minor changes in your operating budget from this time to last time. I think it went down a little bit, about $1,500. There was in the position spreadsheet for regular education, there was a miscalculation of one of the employees, so we corrected that. And the other change just has to do with your preschool and your potential preschool number and your potential SAU number. So the only real differences between those 2 budgets are those 3 things, and then some note corrections and clarifications for your perusal as you go through page by page.
so Scott, if I understand, you're saying really the deltas are minor and it's just more a matter of dotting the i's and crossing the t's as opposed to something substantially different. Is that correct? Correct. Okay. Then,
Does that make sense then?
well, it does.
Okay.
So I don't feel that we have to sort of belabor that, but if there's a big item one way or the other, I'd like to know
Understood.
about it.
Yep, understood. Okay, page 1, Betsy?
Teacher salary lines proposed. What makes up that number, the 1,399,756?
Okay. So that's one of the deltas. Okay, good.
The regular education salary lines are your teaching staff for regular education. Doesn't include your guidance counselors, nurses, and your special education staff. And the detail for that is in that tab under staff list. And so that spreadsheet there will give you the compensation numbers that go into that regular ed line. Also, in addition to that, if you also look at that list, you have 4 retirees, and that percentage is calculated in there, and that's on your list also.
Hal?
It may be just semantics, but I'd like to understand what it means by 9 additional positions. It just caught my eye. I don't think we're hiring 9 more people.
No, the note says this includes 27 teachers, which is your current numbers. There's no reductions or increases there, with 9 additional positions in the budget elsewhere. So that would be your nurse, your
Okay, so
guidance
that's what it's referring
counselors,
to.
that's what that reference. It's referencing you to, it's a clarification note to say, if you look at the spreadsheet, those numbers aren't going to add up because you need to go into those other sections and add those numbers too to come up with that number.
Okay, well, that's what I sort of thought, because I couldn't find 9 other positions.
Grace?
This question will take care of a lot of increases that I saw throughout the budget. If you look at line 5213, life insurance, it's up 30%. There are other insurances that are up sort of large amounts, and I'm assuming that's because of different people taking insurances or taking buyouts and just the rates that were set.
I know we have a do not exceed rate that came in that was fairly higher than in the past. It's not a definite increase, but that's what it's budgeted for. If you have any more details from back there.
I mean, I saw it in a number of places. Health insurance was up, life insurances. And I'm assuming those, as I said, those just have to do with rates you really can't do anything about and people opting into insurance or not. Am I correct in that assumption?
That's part of it. Also, let's just take health insurance and sort of try to tease that out a little
Sure.
bit. So your dental rates are going to remain the same. Your health insurance rates, they've set what's called the GMR, which is a guaranteed maximum rate increase, and we have that now. We won't have those final rates until later in the spring.
Okay.
But it just gives us a budget number to work with. Life insurance has much to do with who you're insuring.
Got
and
it.
what the rates
Yep.
are.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just had a quick question on your regular salaries. So if I look at your proposed budget, right, and then I flip back to the page with all the teacher salaries, is there a total I can trace that number back to?
You would look in the regular education
Yeah,
section.
yeah.
Give me 1 second.
Oh, I see what it's trying to do.
And you would take the total compensation and add that up in that section, and that will match, and we did verify that yesterday, that line.
Well, wouldn't that be, okay, let's just walk me through this. Under regular education, I got my teacher's salaries, so you got a total proposed budget, just for talking purposes, it's a little less than this, but 1.4 million. So if I go back to that listing of the teacher's salaries, wouldn't it just be the salary, is there a salary line total that I should be able to tie out to?
It's not total,
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Ms. Colburn just brought up a point. If you look on the note where it says teachers 1,349,394, and you add that to the second line down, for a total of 45,362. That number comes out to, on that tab sheet, the total regular education teachers of
The total compensation line?
Right. Does that make sense back there too? It looks right up here.
That's basically mine.
Just, it would be, you know, just for next year, it'd be nice if these totals, like, you could have put totals under the total salary, total benefits, so it actually tie out to the line items.
Okay,
Just a suggestion.
thank you.
Sure.
Other questions? Hal?
Yeah, just a minor point, and maybe it's, I don't understand the, all the taxes and stuff, but the salaries are going up 4.7%, and I guess my impression was FICA is pretty much in lockstep with salaries, but it's not going up the same amount. It's only going up 4.4%. So I don't know whether we're missing some, or whether maybe the laws for the FICA are different. You understand what I'm saying?
I do. I know we've looked at the FICA lines with the school board, with the business administrator a few times, because we had a few questions, and they have been double checked. If there's any more details that we'd like to get from back there.
Yeah, I mean, just from previous business experiences, my recollection is FICA includes pretty much everything that's a percent of salary, and nothing is height of salary based. But maybe that's not true, and maybe that's why there's a difference. I'm just wondering, because it just seems like there should be more money in there.
Is there a cap, there's a cap on FICA?
It's 0.765% of the salary.
Say that
Wait.
again, please,
It's-
Scott.
It's 0.765% of the salary, but you need to remember that sometimes you have that you have deductions that are pre-tax off your salary.
Okay.
So to
that-
give you a
okay.
specific answer would be probably a 3-week project.
No,
but
just
do you
wanna
know
make-
what? There's going to be some variability, because if I have something taken out of my check pre-tax,
Pre-tax.
my FICA is going to be.
Got it. Okay, well, that's okay. I just want to understand why that wasn't the same.
Other questions on page 1? Okay, moving on to page 2. Grace?
This is a similar question to previously. I noted a lot of lines, you know, down 56%, up 340%. I'm assuming that has to do with timing of when you buy textbooks and supplies and
Yeah,
like
that's what
this.
all of the notes are.
Okay, but there's always going to be that kind of variability in the school budget. I mean, I should know this, but it was 20 years ago that
Well,
we
we're
did a
going to
school
give you
budget.
a refresher course, Grace.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Ms. Young could probably answer more, but as we replace some of the curriculum textbooks or other materials, then a different year, it's a different area.
Yeah,
where
different,
then we need to
I
focus
mean,
on.
any year there are going to be huge fluctuations in those lines. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Hal?
I just want to understand on the field trip line,
What line?
that would be...
Oh, I see it, yep. The
5591. We match what the PTA provides, and I'm just curious, we've not been having field trips in the past? I mean, the earlier years' lines are zeros.
Right, the school board felt that it was worth funding field trips, so we include that in our budget.
Okay, so in the past, the PTA funded the entire cost of the field trips?
Perhaps there were fundraisers, I guess, if you want to add some more to that, but yeah, I'll let you guys jump in because you've been on the board longer than us.
Yeah, I mean, in the past few years, we didn't provide any money from our budget from it, so the field trips that were there, the PTA would.
So it's solely the PTA supporting that?
Yeah, and it's also an offset cost whenever anyone goes to, they have to pay some amount, to go to the field trips. but they try to
Okay, I
keep
mean, I
that
don't disagree with the amount, I was just,
Yeah,
I thought they were taking field trips earlier, and then I didn't see how we funded it. Okay.
Yeah, there were other donations too in the previous
Yeah,
couple of years
okay.
for field
So
trips.
we covered it somehow. It's not like we weren't doing field trips. It's,
Now, is that on page 2?
Yeah.
It is on mine, on the old one.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, I understand that. It's like fourth or fifth line down.
Yeah.
It's the one with zeros in the actuals. That's what stuck out to me.
Page 3, thank you.
Betsy?
So
Yeah.
we hadn't done it in the past. We hadn't had a line there to put the.
Yes, but we were taking some field trips. It's just, we're going to give it some support budget-wise. Okay.
So is there a reason why it's not listed under the page 22 with field trips, under 27, 25? Why is it in the 1100 series?
It's transportation and the other
I think,
trips.
That's transportation.
So this pays for, what is this, exactly what is this paying for?
Yeah, you can jump in for sure.
Those are like fees for your field trip, like your admission, your this and that, and you are correct that the other section has to do with the bus ride to and from.
yeah.
Al?
Please don't take this as I'm trying to tell you how to do your job, but under,
With that
But-
preference.
but I have a question regarding language supplies. And I just want to understand the idea of using text as opposed to other types of media.
Text here does not refer to a textbook. It refers to any sort of written language that
Okay.
students would be reading.
Okay. And is there consideration to use like software like Babbel or something like that in some of these instances?
We've not explored that because we have a Spanish teacher, so we want to utilize our human resources. Certainly there are technology components that can supplement that.
Well, that's what I was more thinking of, because the repetition and things, sometimes you can't do in class, but, okay, so this is where that would go if you were thinking about that.
If we were doing software, it would actually go in the technology section.
Technology section? Okay.
Other questions on page 2? Okay, seeing none, page 3. Okay, not seeing any. Page 4.
I had a question on page 3, but I didn't get to
You didn't
my
get
old
to-
highlighting, and it looks like testing supplies have gone from $724 up to $5,800. Any?
Yeah, we're utilizing a new Fontes and Pinnell, which is a language arts testing service. And if you want to add any more details to that.
One of the areas that was established as a goal a couple of years ago was to identify a diagnostic that would give us a better indication of students' reading comprehension. We already have things that tell us how accurately they read, how quickly they read. The Fountain and Pinnell system will give us a better read on their comprehension along with those things. So it is a new system. It is a one-time cost. Once we have it, we don't need to keep spending that amount of money every year.
Thank you.
Other questions on 3? 4?
No.
Can I move that amount at this time?
At this point, we'll just go through page by page, I think, and then we'll go back and do the totals. It's just going to be
Okay.
better that way, I guess. Any questions on page 4? Page 5? Yes, Mike.
Okay, on top of page 5, under health benefits, under your regular education, you had about $400,000 worth of health benefits for $1.5 million worth of salary, or less than a third. Here it appears you have $268,000 in health on something that's more like $500,000 worth of salary, which is over 50%. So why the difference in that?
There's two factors that affect your health insurance line. One is your guaranteed maximum, actually there's 3. One is your guaranteed maximum rate increase, which is in there. The other is if there's a change in plans, meaning that there's a change in the structure of the family of the employee, and they elect a different plan from a single to a two-person or to a family, that's going to cause an increase. And then the other thing that would affect that is if you had a change of employee, which you didn't, and they elected a different plan from the previous employee, that would be reflected in your increase also.
So this is, somebody's elected a more expensive plan than they had before, is it?
It is a combination of the GMR and a plan change.
You still have just the one plan. It's not like the old days where you had 2 or 3 different plans depending upon the employee and how long.
In
they
your
had it.
CBA, it defines the health plan, and then there's a different cost between a single and two-person.
Correct.
Yeah, it's still
So
one
it's
plan.
just the difference
It's
in
one
cost
plan.
between, I'm single, now I'm married, so I want to cover my husband, and oh, here comes bouncing quadruplets or whatever. So now I'm going to a family plan. That's the kind of difference, and obviously family costs a lot more than a single. But it's not like the old days where they had a choice between Blue Cross and Aetna, for instance. It's one plan, that's it. And it's simply a matter of, do you need a single? Do you want a double, a 2-person, or do you want a family plan? Or do you want to buy it? Which sometimes happens as well. Hal?
Okay, maybe I grasped what Mike was asking and what you said, but I guess it's not broken out. Because when I look at total benefits, that includes other things also, correct?
Can't break that.
Yeah,
You
I
have the
understand.
level of detail that
Yeah.
we have the limits of the
Yeah.
law. in
But
providing
that's
you
why,
details.
I mean, we see some differences there, and the health might be a factor in that, but it's not the sole. Because, as soon as he said that, I thought, well, I could turn here and just see 3 groups of numbers, but that's not the case. Okay. Got it.
Other questions on page 5? Page 6? Page 7? Grace?
This is total ignorance on my part. I don't understand what the Medicaid line is. Wait, why there's a cost of the Medicaid program? I mean, I don't even know what that's about.
Yes, please, go for it.
So Medicaid in New Hampshire schools is a program, a federal program that money flows through the state, and schools are eligible, when you have a Medicaid eligible student, to recoup 50% of the cost of related services, not educational services, but related services.
Okay.
So speech, PT, OT, rehabilitative assistance for behavior mobility, things like that. We use an organization that does that processing for us.
Okay.
And the reason that we do that is for audit protection, and also that's what they do, so they do it correctly, and we increase our revenue because of that.
Yep.
We pay them an 8% processing fee. So we have to have money in the budget to be able to pay that processing fee, and then the money that comes in from Medicaid to New Hampshire schools is reflected in your revenues.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions on page 7? Okay, let's go on to page 8. Okay, seeing none, page 9. Okay, seeing none, page 10. We're on a roll.
Yeah?
Don't jinx it.
I know, I should try it, right?
Okay.
Page 11. No, you don't need to find one, Hal, just to jinx it. Nothing on page 11. How about 12?
I had actually
Oh,
had something
I'm
on
sorry.
page 11.
Yep.
Was there no money for professional development I mean, it looks like there wasn't.
What line are you on, please?
Oh, I'm
Brian?
sorry, I'm on line 5322. Professional development,
How far down?
two-thirds of the way down.
Oh, thank you.
It's highlighted in orange on my paper.
I'm not seeing that. You must have a different version.
So it goes from 0 to 6,600, like what was happening in the past?
All right, there is money for professional development in a few different places in the budget, and this one is particularly for improvement of instruction, and the new line that I had, back to Tom's question about the new assessment program, the
Got it.
diagnostic font
Okay.
system for now.
Okay. Yep, get that.
Other questions on page 11? Tom, I'm sorry.
The new, we have since 2017 had a curriculum director, which appears down at the bottom of page 11. And the question is it worth the money we decided to spend?
We haven't got there yet.
I'm at the bottom of page 11. And I'm just looking to you to say.
I mean, in a general answer, the school board feels it's worth the money that we're spending on the curriculum director, and that's why we've continued to include the position in our budget.
Amen.
Anything else on 11? Go on to 12. Hal?
So I guess maybe in partial answer to Tom's question, under curriculum improvement, there is a fairly significant increase. Can we just get some feedback as to what that includes, please?
Sure, I'm going to defer to Ms. Young.
It's actually right in the notes below it.
Yep,
So that's the whole change, I guess?
that's the total of what's being requested and the breakdown of what's being requested. If you total those
Oh, I
up, you're
see
going
what
to
you're
come up to
saying.
your
Oh.
32,510.
Okay, I misread the numbers then, I'm sorry. Okay, I got it.
Other questions on page 12? Okay, go to 13. Seeing none, we'll go to 14. Okay, and 15.
Just point out, this is the notes, that's a list of the new software.
And as a general statement, I totally appreciate the school board's efforts to break this out and give us
The detail.
detail so that we understand where that money is being spent, what kinds of things it's being spent on. Hal, did you have a question?
Yeah, I don't think Mr. Robert is here, so maybe maybe we can't answer this, but the replacement of equipment technology and stuff, I'd just like to understand what our replacement rate is on computers and things like that.
I'm going to defer to Ms. Young. I know we have a technology plan. It's ongoing. It's scheduled replacements, but I'll let you fill in more details about that if you want.
Well, let me lead the answer a little bit. I don't, unless I'm missing something, I don't think that computers are getting any cheaper, and I don't think the class sizes are changing that much, but yet I see the numbers are dropping.
Well, computers are getting cheaper.
Oh, yeah, they are,
Yeah.
big time. Big time. Price out a new computer today, it's
Well, let's hear what she says.
fifth of the cost of what it was.
So these numbers do align with our technology plan, which calls for about a 20% replacement every year. So 20% of the computers in the building are expected to need to be replaced. Sometimes that happens sooner, sometimes
Right,
it doesn't. So Mr. Robert does keep an inventory of what computers are in good repair. So there is some adjustment to this number based on what he anticipates the actual needs are. But it, in general, is about 20% for student computers. The staff computers are fewer in number but more in money because we buy a higher quality computer. For teachers, they tend to take better care of them. And then the smartboard replacement, and I apologize for the typo in that note. Every classroom is equipped with a smartboard. Some of them are now at 6 or 7 years old, so those need to be phased out. The technology has changed 1,000-fold in the last 6 or 7 years. So those are quite out of date. The iPad replacement is also part of the technology plan. And then the headphones, as we get more and more using the computers for individual students, noise becomes a factor. So trying to make sure that we're supplementing what kids bring from home for their headphones with things that we can provide to them as well.
I mean, my concern, and I'm okay with the explanation, if we fall behind, then it's hard to catch back up, is really my point.
So if I can say, this technology plan where we're replacing computers, 20% a year is relatively new. I think we started a year or two ago, so some of the bigger numbers you see in the actuals from previous years are because we did have to play some catch up, because the years before that, we were not going through doing this. So we're trying to get to a point where, it'll be this value ongoing, and not be going up and down.
Yeah, so you think we're getting closer to that?
I think so, yeah.
Is there any revenue to be realized from these computers that you are replacing?
No.
It's an interesting question.
I wouldn't think so.
So there's two parts to that question. Is a computer that broken probably still has some usable parts, so I'm sure Mr. Robert keeps a cadre of those. And then the school district has a disposal of asset policy in place. And first is to sell, and then it goes down through a list to donation to disposal.
Other questions on page 15?
One question, just a quick comment. I note that the computers are going down, but the ink is still going up.
Oh, isn't it? Yeah.
That's a fact of life, huh?
Moving on to page 16. Seeing none, page 17.
Oh,
Al,
well, I'm going to ask the question on the NEASC. Can you just go over that and what is it? And I didn't recognize what the letters are, so I mean, as a starting point, that would help.
Sure. I'm going to ask you to fill in details. It's what I can say about it is the school board was previously hoping to get NEASC accreditation, which the application was approved, and this upcoming year we have to host a site visit. So the increase in cost is for that expense. If you want to talk more about NEASC in general, that would be helpful.
So it's an accreditation process?
Yes. So the acronym stands for the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. And it is an accreditation organization that comes out. So we did an application over the course of last year. We're approved to be a candidate. Over the course of this year, we're doing a self-study, providing evidence of our meeting of the standards according to NEASC. And then that work will continue into next year, culminating in a multi-day site visit where 8 to 10 NEASC representatives will come, do interviews, review our documentation, tour the school, observing classrooms to determine our accreditation status.
So what does the accreditation actually address? Does it address school policies, the way we teach the children, or disciplinary? I mean, what all does the accreditation cover?
All of the above. So it's a system-wide look. There are 7 discrete standards that they look at, including curriculum, facilities, instruction, staffing, use of resources from the community, use of resources in the school. So it's a multifaceted look at our school as a whole and how it functions.
Do we have anybody helping us work our way through this accreditation? In other words, a consultant or anybody like that coming in to help make sure we have things in place, things like that?
We are working directly with NEASC. So the gentleman that we work with is named George Edwards. He has come out a couple of times and spoken to the building leadership team who's taking the lead in organizing the effort. He's come and presented to the whole staff. He's available for consultation as we go. So not formally a consultant, but certainly getting some support from NEASC directly.
Okay, so that's part of their fee then. I think it's a good thing to do.
Any other questions on page 17? Bob?
On the telephone line, I noticed that in the new equipment, you were purchasing an iPad with cellular capability, and yet there is nothing new in the telephone line that seems to reflect that. Okay. We're on,
It's on page 18.
oh,
I'm still
sorry.
on page
I'm on
17.
Okay,
If I may
I'll
indulge,
get to that back then.
No, that's all right. I don't think we had anything left on 17, did we?
I have one more question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold that thought, Bob.
I'm holding it.
Okay. Yes, Hal?
So don't take this as too personal, but I'm looking at the principal's salary and the vacation day buyout. Is that your rate per day? Or is that days?
That is based on my per diem, yes.
So just one day is $2,000?
No.
That's why I was asking. Well, that's why I was, so what's happening there? You're not taking as much vacation as we would like to give you, or?
Let me ask as part of negotiating in her contract, if she isn't able to take her vacation time on a yearly basis, there's a portion that can be bought back, and that's why.
Okay. So she's working
So
more
7
than
days- 7
she thought
days
she
will be
would,
bought
yeah.
back. Yes.
Okay,
Any other questions on 17?
good, actually.
We'll move ahead to 18. Bob?
Just a simple note, if you were back on page 15, they are buying an iPad with cell service, and yet there really isn't a reflection. The telephone contracts basically are for the cell phones that Tom and the two administrators have. So I'm just curious as to where that's going to get paid for. Sorry?
Repeat the question.
I'm
So
just saying,
if
just,
you- if
just
you look-
looking at page 18, the cell phone line is consistent, pretty much, and yet you were requesting an iPad with a cell phone, and I'm just curious as to, I mean, obviously you can overspend the line, but just thinking ahead of time.
Unfortunately, I don't have a tech director here. So if he's missed that detail, he'll be using an iPad without cell service, and or he'll have to find another way to take that out of his technology lines. So I'm sorry, I don't have him here to answer that question.
But we'll be seeing you again, so we can get an answer at a later time.
We're texting right now.
Oh, I can see the line going up now. Anything else on page 18? Okay, moving on to 19. Okay, seeing none. Page 20. Al?
I'm looking at the replacement of equipment about 3/4 of the way down. And I'm just wondering whether we've considered putting that into the CIP, or maybe it is in the CIP plan, CIP. And then the second part would be, does this not fall under maybe an equipment fund that we already have, that it could come out of there? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, we've been discussing the replacing the tractor as part of the CIP. We decided to put it in the budget as it is.
I mean, we have to spend the money either way. I'm just
Right.
trying to think about planning purposes for the town. It's not a big number, so it doesn't disrupt things too much, but just asking.
And Mr. McGuigan, if you want to talk more about that. But, I mean, we chose to put it here rather than take it from a capital reserve or facilities reserve or one of those funds. I think because of the amount and, the equipment.
If I might interject, I'm sorry. I don't believe that that would be your building fund eligible.
Okay.
I think you might have some legal difficulties extracting money from your building fund for equipment.
Okay, so that's the delta there, okay.
And even if it were part of the CIP plan, eventually it's got to show up in a budget somewhere when
Well,
it's time
budget
to
or
replace those
some
things.
other way of
Right.
funding. And I'm just asking, what you're
Right.
thinking about. But it sounds like we don't really have a fund that would be eligible to even consider.
Or
putting
that's
in.
this kind of equipment,
Yeah.
correct. Other questions on page 20? Okay, page 21. Okay,
Well, I'm going to ask the
Al?
question. I'm looking down near the very bottom, school transportation. It's not really a budget question, but are we comfortable that we got all the drivers we need and everything?
Yes.
confirmation. Moving on to page 22,
Maybe just one question on,
on 21, or?
yeah, you have water testing for this year, but not for the last 3. Is that something we should have been doing or not, or whether we have to test the water every few years?
I'll let you go.
The state of New Hampshire passed a new RSA that ups the level of lead testing that we do in schools. You had a standard water test each year that was pretty low cost, probably just showed up in your contracted services or somewhere, but now we need to test each source that can be, the potable water comes from, so drinking fountains, sinks. And so the reason you see that in there is to cover the cost of that test.
Okay.
Oh, so sorry.
Al?
So you're testing now each device, you're not testing water Bob provides?
We're testing the main source because
But-
we have the same law.
Yeah, but you're having to test as it comes out of each device, or whatever you want to call it. Ooh.
Can I ask a question, just out of curiosity?
Yes?
If he's testing the water from the supply,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Right.
Why would you have to test it again?
Because let's say
through
the
the
water
pipes and
coming
stuff?
out of the district has a lower pH
Yeah,
on the low end.
yeah.
Now there's the potential for leaching out lead from your copper, if there's copper pipes and solder, so they just want to make sure that
Gotcha.
the
I
entire
just
system
found-
is clear, yeah.
Other questions? Okay, going on to 22. I lost track of my numbers.
I think we might be on 23.
Thank you. I lost track of my numbers. Any questions on 23?
Oh, we did? Sorry.
Grace, you and I are on the same page,
We are.
obviously, but, well, I had the page like I wasn't sure if I had flipped it or I was going to flip it. Are there questions on 22?
Yeah, where's the field trip going?
We.
You know where you're going?
No, I don't know where we're going.
Page 23? Page 24? Hal?
Oh,
Which page?
24.
Okay.
Tell me if I should hold this until we move this one, but I'd like to have some discussion about how much we have in the tuition budget, and if it's more appropriate for when we get to the motion and discussion, that's fine.
No, we can discuss it now.
Okay, so I'm just questioning the number of students we have for Co-Brown tuition. And I think the notes indicated we're including all the homeschool children.
Not all. 2. that would be going up there?
So we've asked to reach out to 8th graders who are homeschooled to ask if they were intending to go to Co-Brown, as has happened in the past, and 2 of them have replied that they are intending to go to the Co-Brown, though they haven't gone to Northwood Elementary School. So the assumptions here, the note, it says all students attending CBNA, including 2 incoming homeschooled 8th graders.
Okay, so I guess I misunderstood that then. This does not include, there's 10 homeschooled children currently,
In 8th grade or total?
total in high school.
Right.
Are they included in this budget also?
No, we've contacted them, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we've contacted homeschool students and asked their intentions for next year and budgeted based on their intentions.
Oh, great, because we have that fund. Okay, so this is a little bit of a difference than what we've done in the past.
This is different than what we've done in years past, when the school board would want to budget for an additional 5 students who might move into the district
So
over
now
the
we
course
are
of a
not.
year.
Okay.
Now they are budgeting for actual numbers that they know about.
And
The capital reserve fund you're referring to would be if all of a sudden 3 new families moved in that had 5 high school students that we didn't know about.
Or the
That's where that
homeschoolers.
would come out of.
become unhomeschooled or
Right.
whatever. So how much is in that, how many students are represented by what we have in that fund?
I believe we have 10 in that fund represented, but I could be
Because
wrong.
prices have gone up.
Exactly, prices go up. So you have $161,000 in that account as of June 30th. So,
Okay.
Or
So-
as of as of October 31st.
So close to 10 students.
So you have close to 10.
Okay.
9 and 3 quarters.
Is there a separate fund for special ed kids who may need special ed services?
You also have a reserve fund for special education students.
Who might go to Co-Brown?
No, we budget for
Period.
special.
Period. Whether they go to Co-Brown or come into the elementary school.
I believe the board's preference for that fund is if you had a student move into district that needed to be sent out, or was in the district that needed to be sent out of district,
Right.
Right.
which is a high expense. And that's what that fund primarily, I would imagine the board would want to use for. That would be my recommendation. We budget for our special education students at Co-Brown and our needs in Northwood. And we try very hard not to tap into that fund because that fund, one student could deplete that fund in 1 year.
So let me just look at the numbers on enrollments in the 8th grade, where you have 37 students in the 8th grade whom you expect to go on to Co-Brown, right? If one of those or more of those students, those 37 students, are receiving special ed services at the school, in school services, is that taken into account as you budget towards their going into, I see him nodding his head, as they go forward into Co-Brown?
So you're on the right page. So take a look at your tuition Co-Brown Academy line, the second line down.
Yes.
So every student, regardless of whether they're special education or regular education that are placed at the Northwood School that are going to matriculate to Co-Brown are included in that base tuition line of $16,000 and change, right?
Yep.
Jump down to the second line from the bottom where it says Special Education Co-Brown Academy. If you look in that note, you'll see you have, and this includes your matriculating 8th graders, but you have a total of 28 identified students at Co-Brown. And then there's a differential applied for the skills tuition, for the special ed tuition, in addition to that regular ed tuition up top.
You've got it covered.
So you got it on a delta
It's
basis as
covered.
opposed
And
to...
the reason that we do that, it's nice to have the philosophy that the special education students are regular education students first.
Yeah.
And that they just require another layer of service, and so the budget is aligned to that philosophy.
Thank you, Scott.
Grace?
Just make sure I'm understanding this correctly, and then Co-Brown charges special education tuition on top of the regular? So that you're able to know what the number's going to be.
Yes, and that number's down. Second
Right.
line from the bottom.
So if the student ended up needing more services, does Co-Brown eat that difference? I see a shake of the head in the back.
Well, I'm going to say in a general way, yes. You've also got some other lines. You have a speech therapy high school line that's going to show up in the next
Okay.
page, I think. And
Okay.
what we do, so we provide the speech services at Co-Brown. We provide the physical therapy services if students need those. We provide behavior consultation. They provide the educational services, the direct instruction,
Okay.
and a portion of para support. And then if we have students who are high need that need like a one-to-one paraprofessional, we pay for that.
Okay.
So all that's scattered through your high school budget.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions on page 24? Okay, we're on to page 25. Al?
High school transportation, is there a change in the bus routes, or did we just get a better contract, or what's going on there for the high school transportation?
So if you remember, knock on wood, you lost your bus transportation last year, right? So in the process of negotiating the new contract with the new provider, they just did add-ons to the existing elementary routes rather than individual routes, and that reduced your cost in the high school transportation section.
Okay. And then the related question is the special ed is just, we have students going to different places, and it doesn't cost as much to send them to those places. I'm just looking one line down further, Scott.
I have an answer, but he's probably got a better one. So.
Yeah, I could chime in too, but we'll see.
I just wanted to verify that answer, but your transportation contract for special education is a different contract with a different provider. Actually, it used to be the provider, now it's Durham.
Oh, okay.
So the reason that your number's down is that your placements and your routes are down.
So, okay. Yeah, so it's a result of what students need and where they need to go has changed more so than the cost of the transportation itself, per se.
Right, we can assume that transportation in special education will increase the daily rate over time, but you have less students requiring specialized transportation.
Got it.
I have one last question on transportation, which is that there's a note about Co-Brown students and elementary buses being in some way combined.
That's kind of what the same answer to Hal's question is. The decrease in the high school transportation is because it's being billed as an extended route rather than a separate route.
And on that extended route, would they also pick up both Co-Brown students as well as elementary school students?
No, the same bus, same driver, but not at the same time.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Good.
Other questions on page 25? And top of 26. Hal?
I guess a sort of standard question. The capital reserve for the retirement benefits, how, I guess, financially, how are we relative to what our liability is? Am I asking the
It's
question
going to
right?
require some study to, we'd have to look at what your balance is and then
I'm just trying to get a
calculate
sense, are we, because we're not funding it this year, so is it the sense of the board that we're sort of close, or we can cover most of what we need? I'm just trying to get some sense, because I have to tell you, I'm more of a proponent of gradually paying as we go along and keeping things level than getting a surprise and, oh geez, now we got a big expense that we somehow have to deal with, especially if it comes up. I mean, who knows why somebody might retire, but if something happens and several retire at once,
I believe we're pretty close to being on schedule. I don't know the total liability.
yeah.
I know it has come up with the school board. We've looked into it. I don't remember the details.
But you think we're relatively close? Everybody, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
I think that might be something that the school board could research between now and then. I'm guessing that you would be wanting to make a motion to put money on that.
well,
Oh,
yeah,
wait a minute,
I
that's
just
a
don't
warrant
like.
article. No, that's a warrant article, so they would have to determine whether or not they were going to do a warrant article for it. It's just showing on their operating budget, but it's
Okay.
not part
Okay.
of the
Fair enough. Fair
operating
enough.
budget.
Good.
Tom?
The town, I think, provided us with a copy of the amount of money in different funds.
Which
We
is in my
gotten a
book at home.
similar document from this, for the school? Yeah, next time. Well, I'm not
Yeah,
very.
we've been discussing them like in the last couple of meetings as we've been looking at warrants and stuff. So it'll be pretty quick to get. But I don't know.
It'd be nice to have a piece of paper.
Sure.
Yes.
So what I'm thinking we can do fairly quickly, since we've gone through the 26 pages, is now go back and take a vote on those sections that we can vote on, and then we can take a break. And we'll get into warrant article. Does that sound?
What sections can't we vote?
Special ed, we cannot because we're waiting for final numbers from the joint board, which occur Monday, and we meet on Wednesday. So Mr. Winslow is going to take us through sections that, and make motions, which he does very well.
Pressure, Brian.
Okay, so I'm gonna start on page 4. I'd like to move the line for regular education of $2,485,373.17.
Second.
All right, so we have Brian with the motion, and I'm going to call Betty for the second on this one, and because you spoke it at the same time. I move. Any further discussion necessary? Okay, all those in favor of $2,485,373.17 say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
We're gonna hold off on total special education on page 6. So I'm gonna ask everyone to move to page 7, and I'd like to move total Medicaid proposed budget of $8,000.
Second.
Brian and Betty again, only because your voice is louder. I know somebody else.
She projects.
So, she projects, that's it. Any further discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor of $8,000 for Medicaid, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, continuing on page 7, I'd like to move total co-curricular $44,850.
Second.
Brian and Grace. Motion and second. Do we have further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, moving to page 8, I'd like to move total athletic for $35,000.
Second.
Your motion and second, I'm sorry, I didn't catch you.
Me.
Betty, okay. Any further discussion on athletic? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, I'd like to move total summer school $3,260.
Second.
Okay, Brian and Betty again. Any further discussion? Hal?
Yeah, this just seems awfully low to me on an ongoing basis. Do we not have much going on in summer school? No, I mean, that could be part of the answer, but
So, let me help you with this. So your summer school line has to do with students in upper grades who need to be remediated. so that they're successful and able to move on. So that's a small number of children. Separate from that, you have what are called your ESY lines for special education. And if the special education team feels like a student's going to regress more than the typical student over the course of the summer, then we give those extended school year services, which isn't summer school, but it still is a summer program.
Okay,
So those budget items are included in the special education
Special
section
ed,
of your
okay.
budget.
okay, I understand.
Any other questions on summer school? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Okay, I'd like to move total truant officer for $808.
Second.
Brian and Michael. We're gonna change it. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, moving on to page 9, I'd like to move total guidance, $138,816.36.
Second.
I thought I'd give
Brian
somebody
Grace.
else another chance.
Thank you, Grace.
They like to see their names in print.
That's
Any
fine.
further any further discussion on guidance? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, moving to page 10, I'd like to move total nurse, $87,437.76.
Second. Yeah, he was a little before me.
Which one of you?
You can have it.
Ladies
Dan.
before gentlemen.
No, we'll go with Dan this time. We have a motion and second. Any further discussion on the nurse? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
I'd like to move total contracted services for $1.
Second.
we have a motion and second, Brian and Dan. Any discussion?
Just a general question, I'm sorry to ask this, but we always put $1 in some of these things, and my understanding of the law is we really don't
You
need
do.
to.
You have
It
to.
keeps the line open, in case for some reason they have to spend.
I
from
hear
that
what
line.
you're saying.
No, you can't
But-
spend on a line that doesn't have a dollar.
You have to have
Right,
it.
it's
Because if it's
required.
zero, the line doesn't exist.
Right.
If it's zero, the line doesn't exist. And you're right, under the law, it's a bottom line budget, and the school board can decide to take that from somewhere else. The consequence of that is that we lose our ability to track. So if we keep $1 in a line and have a contracted services expense that's unanticipated, it will still come out of your bottom line budget, but it creates history for us to be able to see what actually happened.
Right.
Other questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Okay, I'd like to move on to page 11 and move the line for total speech, which is $116,253.89.
Second.
Brian and Betty. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, I'd like to move total improvement of instruction for $28,202.
Second.
And it's Brian and Betty. The reason I'm saying who's doing the motion is for Linda, so for the minutes and all that. Especially when 5 of us all say second at the same time. Any further discussion on improvement of instruction? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, moving to page 12, I'd like to move total curriculum director, $155,602.39.
Second.
And that is Brian and Dan. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, I'd like to move total instruction of staff training for $30,500.
Second.
It's Brian and Betty. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Moving moving to page 13, I'd like to move total media for $79,460.60.
Second.
And Brian and Betty. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
And moving up to page 16, I'd like to move total other support services, $222,383.53.
Second.
Brian and Betty. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Okay, moving to page 17, I'd like to move total school board services, $75,894.
Second.
Brian and Grace. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
One abstention.
2 abstentions. So that's a 13-2, Linda. Okay,
I'd like to hold on total SAU expenses until we get a vote from the joint board.
Brian.
And I'd like to move on to page 19, total office of the principal. I'd like to move the amount of $389,180.97.
Second.
Brian and Betty. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, I'd like to move on page 20, total maintenance and operations for $511,723.38.
Second.
Good man, Brian and Michael. Any further discussion? Michael. Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, moving to page 21, I'd like to move total grounds maintenance, $27,013.30.
Second.
Brian and Grace. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
I'd like to move total contracted services for the fire alarm, $5,880.
Second.
pick Betty, Brian and Betty. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
I'd like to move total state mandated water testing for $2,800.
Second.
Dan? Brian and Dan on that one. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, moving to page 22, I'd like to move total school transportation, $336,959.20.
Second.
Brian and Michael. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'd like to move total special education transportation, $61,335.40.
Second.
And that's Brian and Betty. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I'd like to move total athletic transportation, $6,400.
Second.
Who's this?
Dan.
Dan? Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'd like to move total class field trip transportation for $1,800.
Second.
Brian and Betty. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
believe we skipped the zero lines, and so I'd like to move total food service, this is on page 23, for $124,056.
Second.
The motion and Grace second. Any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, we're gonna ask that we hold on total elementary costs. And so move on to page 24 for total high school regular education. I'd like to move the amount of $3,511,472.03.
Second.
Brian and Michael. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I believe we can do total high school special education. I'd like to move the amount of $807,668.20.
Second.
We have Brian and Grace. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'd like to move total high school speech for $23,585.81.
Second.
Brian and Betty. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'd
Any opposed?
like to move total high school transportation $105,499.07.
Second.
Brian and Grace. We have a motion and second. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
And I think we can do total high school cost. I'd like to move $4,448,225.11.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second with Betty for the total high school costs. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Excuse me.
Okay.
And I'd like to hold on the grand total.
We need to do that because it's, we haven't done special ed, we haven't done the SAU. Right. Okay, so we have acted on what we can on the operating budget. At this time, I'd like to call a 10-minute break, and when we come back, we'll address Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back in session at 10:40. We'll begin with, everybody got a new set of warrant articles. Dan?
Just checking if we're doing the same rules as lunch at noon and end at 3.
Well, I'm thinking that we'll see how close we are at noontime, and if we're looking at just a very short time after that, possibly just going until we finish, rather than breaking for an hour and coming back for 15 minutes potentially.
That's fine.
So I figure we'll wait until we get a little closer and see where we're at.
Well, we only have 6 warrant articles.
So, and Ryan, you're back on.
All right, thank you. So we're talking about warrant articles. So warrant article 2
We cannot address.
was not addressed. Warrant article 1. Let me see.
So number 3.
So I'd like to make a motion to recommend Article number 3. Shall the Northwood School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $480,000 for the, oh wait, hold on. 400. Okay. So I'm going to just read it. $480,000 for construction and equipping of security-related improvements and renovations to the Northwood School, with $250,000 to come from taxation, and the remaining amount to be offset by a $100,000 grant from the state of New Hampshire, $70,000 from the Building Capital Improvement Capital Reserve Fund, and $60,000 from the June 30 fund balance available for transfer on July 1. This amount being unexpected appropriation for a school resource officer in the fiscal year 2018 school district operating budget that will lapse on June 30th. And rather than looking to recommend this, I'd like to ask Mr. Rooney to present more information about this article at this time.
Yes.
Oh, of course. I'm sorry. Somebody actually asked permission.
Simon says.
Wow. I'm not accustomed to
Sorry.
So I'll turn my microphone. So I feel like I need to provide that we need to provide the budget committee with a certain level of detail that I need to balance with the overall security of the school. So I'm quickly just going to show you some things and then orally go over some issues. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on how this will work or that will work or where it will be located. I think Bob would probably agree with me that that's a good idea. But I've also got to give you and potentially the voters enough information to make a decision. So last year, after two events, the board, as I think society in general, became very concerned about school safety. And so the board asked the former superintendent to engage in an architectural study with the focus of being a school safety. And from there, the architect came in, presented to the board in a non-public session, and then the board authorized a construction estimate. And we have that information back, and that's the result of that rather long and complicated warrant article and the ask for that $250,000 and other funding sources. So in looking at the Northwood School, the real concern is making sure that our security systems are up to date, and also that we eliminate outside traffic from crossing with student traffic with inside the building. So I'm just going to quickly show you, and actually Gary is going to blur this a little bit, but I will show it to you. Is that I'll use.
Can I ask a question?
You sure can.
Because this came up slight. Is this just security?
It is. Yeah, but here's the thing.
I don't think you should be showing
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Once
Nope.
it's shown in a
Don't,
public
don't,
meeting,
don't,
of
don't,
course.
don't
Okay.
show your
All
security.
right. So I can do that.
I
Even
guess-
better, because
I mean, if you're sitting there saying he's going to blur the thing, if you're concerned about security, don't be showing the plan here.
I appreciate that from the budget committee. We had a discussion at the board level about what the board felt that they needed to provide a certain amount of information. So I can scale that back.
But I
what
do
I'll
have
say,
a
yeah,
couple of questions.
sure. Can I
Right.
just?
I'm sorry. Okay.
All right. So one of the issues, there's a couple issues within the building. One is how it's oriented and how close to Route 4 it is, right?
Yeah.
And the other is within the entrances, so there's a back entrance, there's that courtyard entrance, and then there's that other entrance up front, is that there's the potential for cross traffic from outside the school when it's in, and students. So the real focus of a reconfiguration is eliminating that and hardening the building. Is that enough information for now?
Are you going to put up those, like I work at a lot of the state buildings now, if you look at federal buildings, because you could have a tractor trailer come plowing right into the front of the school.
You mean a Jersey barrier? That is not.
But you ever see those big cement barriers they put out in front of the entrances so a vehicle can't drive in it? You don't have those now.
We do not, and that is not.
Is that one of the things you're
That's
talking
not one of the
about?
considerations at this point.
Because if you're worried about security, I'm just saying, are you guys gonna get real about security? If somebody was intended to do damage, they could somebody just take a truck and drive it right through the front door.
Could I jump in for a sec?
Yes, please.
The focus, at least at this stage, and who knows what the future will bring, but the focus of this stage was to really separates the student population from the visiting population coming into the office, coming into a reception area, and to harden the security between those two areas. So there's a limitless amount of things that we could do for sure, but that's where the focus of this warrant article and the construction for this warrant article is focused on.
Michael?
I don't feel like I've completely answered this.
I kind of hate to admit it, but since I retired here a few years ago, I've never been inside the school. So right now, you can go in multiple entrances. Or you just not one.
It is locked down, right?
Yeah.
The entrances are secure, right? But once you're in the building, before you get to the reception area, there's the potential to cross student traffic.
Scott, I mean, just,
Hal?
just as let me just give you an example, Mike, so you understand. Like when I go to meet with the folks at the school about the moderator and the school staff, I must cross between the students and stuff 3, 4, maybe 5 times, including sitting in the waiting area, which is right where all the students come out. I mean, every single student files past. And it's just what you said, it's just a complete mix of people, insiders and outsiders.
So,
I mean, I'm buzzed into the first door, Scott, but once you're in the first door,
I just had a quick question. I'm reading this. So the project's going to cost $480,000. You're going to take $100,000. You anticipate getting a $100,000 grant. Already got it.
I have an approval.
Okay. So what do you actually need from taxation? $250,000.
Yeah.
yeah.
Can I just throw this out here because I'm not trying to cause trouble. I understand the need for this. We're trying to go forward with the safety complex right now, which is definitely a huge need for the town because so I'm wondering, I'm just saying, there's a risk that if we start putting out, you got your $250,000 here, we're asking for this over here, which is, I can tell you right now, it's gonna be multi-million dollars. I'm just kind of concerned that we're asking too much in 1 year for both school, maybe balancing act, or I don't know.
I don't want you to think that the board didn't have that consideration and conversation. I can ask one of the board members to respond if you'd like.
If I can, I mean, one of the reasons, well, maybe to give you a little history of this plan is that when we got this construction, when we got the construction plan from the architects, the idea was to apply to the state and see if the state would fund the entire thing. And that was actually the hope, is that we would get a grant for the entire cost from the state. When the state came back and said they would only provide, they capped it at $100,000. It's like, well, that's good. That's $100,000 we can spend for this, but the real cost obviously is a bit more than that. So we tried to kind of not scramble, but get creative and see what we could do to keep the amount down that we'd have to ask for taxation to do this, so that we could take advantage of the $100,000 that we're getting from the state. It's not clear. I mean, that is a time-limited thing. If we don't, it is kind of a use it or lose it thing.
So if you don't spend, you can't, they won't hold it for you for another year.
We can ask for extensions, I believe, but there's no guarantee on that.
Okay.
Very risky. Betty?
Perhaps we prefer to pass on this and have this be the year that our school gets hit. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Other comments, questions? Dan?
There's no vote from the school board in this.
Yeah, my apologies. We did approve it. We did recommend it 4-1 on here. Just didn't update that. You can write that in.
Not sure if that's true. I'm just
No,
thinking,
but it's
reading
not.
through this on a ballot, it's gonna look like we're really voting for $480,000 instead of $250,000.
Yeah, hold on.
Hold on.
I need to back the bus up a little
So-
bit. Actually, Chairman McGuigan, we decided to put this on Monday nights when we adopt the SAU.
I spoke incorrectly. I was talking about the other warrant. I
Right,
apologize. I take that
because
back.
there were warranting questions. This is not the warrant you originally had. right? So I think I can answer the question about, it looks like we're raising and appropriating more than that. Because it was a conversation with the school district attorney yesterday and a later writing email that allowed me to put this on the warrant. So you can't vote on this, but you certainly can discuss it. I had a lengthy conversation just late yesterday afternoon with Attorney Graham, and he believes that this is the appropriate and transparent wording that needs to be in the warrant, and that we need to explain if we approve the warrant, that it is not for the full amount, that it's a $250,000 warrant, that you've got other funding sources in place. Does that answer everybody's questions so far?
Yeah, I was gonna say, that matches what we've always been taught at the moderators and financial.
I think you have to word it like that.
Right.
because
Yeah, I don't think you have a
You
choice.
have to spend that
Right.
money, but you know, you'd like to hope people can read that and understand, but sometimes they don't.
Maybe you can use different font.
Grace?
Yeah, boldface, 250,000.
I have a question about what this is going to buy, but don't answer if it's revealing too much about what the safety plans are. But I think you said that the major focus was to stop the cross traffic. So am I correct in assuming there would be rerouting of traffic and perhaps further security? I'm just trying to understand what the money's
We
for.
want to limit the cross traffic, and we also want to reorient the entrance of the building away from Route 4.
Okay.
So you're moving the whole, okay.
You have an existing courtyard entrance. It's
Yep.
basically pulling some outside grounds work and some inside construction work to reorient.
But, so let's say I get buzzed in through the courtyard entrance. Can I then walk anywhere I want in the school? Or are there already additional buzz doors to get
There
through?
already are, the issue is, the courtyard entrance has two doors, two
Yep.
sets of doors.
Yep.
I'm looking at Jocelyn because she's there all the time. So you buzz into the first section, you open the second section, you walk across a foyer,
Yep,
and then
Yeah.
into the office.
yep.
And then there's an entrance to the gym and an entrance to the school that are locked, but you have the potential for students to.
Come through, yeah, I get it. Okay. Thank you.
I should know oh, sorry.
Scott?
I should know the answer to this, and I apologize, I don't. Was this in the capital improvement plan?
No, this was the result.
Which is okay.
Yep, no, it was not in the CIP, and the reason when these concerns arose, it was already after your budget for last year was done. I'll go into a little more detail so you can understand the work that they did. So the school infrastructure grant started with a certain amount of money and a $100,000 cap on that money. And people did not apply for that money, so the commission removed the cap, right? So then some schools applied and got 80% of whatever they asked for. Then they had another round of money. That round of money opened up at exactly the time that our studies came back. So I went in, and I think within 4 hours, wrote the grant and submitted it to get it in, and because that money, it's first come, first served. And so that's how you got approved for the 100,000. You got capped at $100,000 because the rules shifted. And so now you've got an approval letter for $100,000. The work's supposed to be done in the spring. I'm going to file an extension based on whatever happens. And but I don't know if that money is going to be available in the future. I just don't know.
Is anybody from your group reached out to the state and said, town's going forward with some big warrant articles, we'd like to push this off for a year. Is there any way we can hold that money for a year? Have you actually asked that question?
I have not been in touch with the state since a few weeks ago. We certainly, if the board directs me to ask that question, I certainly can. My plan was to get in touch with them next week and talk about potential, the extension. but I can certainly have that conversation. Now, the issue is, I can have that conversation with the school safety office at the Department of Education, but the people that make these decisions are the Commission on School Safety, and they meet on a certain schedule. And I think Bob might have something to add.
My question, again, going back to, we've received essentially a go-ahead on 100,000. Is that contingent on doing the whole project, or is that contingent upon, in other words, a portion of the project so those funds could be used with the idea that the funds would be used, we could go into the project later on?
That's certainly a question, a topic that I'm going to discuss next week. The issue is we had different options that I'm not going to show you now.
Sure.
And there wasn't much. Okay, there was like there was a walkway reconfiguration that I can talk about that had to do with a covered canopy, right? And that to us could be done at a later date, so we removed that, right? So that brought the cost down to this option. It's really hard with this option to piecemeal it in. So we've already done those like internal kind of reductions. The original number was 679 or something like that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I've had the benefit of seeing it, so I'm
Right.
just trying to see.
Right.
In other words, the concern is we have funding to look at certain items in terms of reconfiguring the building. And I was just wondering if that $100,000 could be used to do a portion of that.
I think I would have to file a modification. And that isn't what I did when I did it because we were just trying to secure the funding.
Does anyone, Tom?
Scott, if the state Commission on School Safety has said to you in response to your grant proposal, we'll give you $100,000, what are the time frames for that? And secondly, if you were going to do this work, out of what year's budget would the supplemental funds come, or do you really need to do that? And when would you do the work?
So right now I have an approval until April 1st. I'm going to file for an extension based on what happens, right?
April 1st, meaning that
This year.
they
Yep,
would,
this next.
they stop writing checks on April 1st?
No. The way the approval's
Probably
done
have to
is
start the project by April 1st.
no.
I didn't ask you.
Okay, so let's let him finish, folks.
That's all right. The current approval that I have says the work needs to be done by April 1st. Extensions are flexibly granted. I've already been told that. So, given the amount of work that we have to do, it doesn't seem feasible we would be able to do the work, a lot of the work, until the building's empty anyway.
Right.
So we'd be looking at having the work done by September 1st. And then, so what we would do is expend out of our budget, our adopted budget for 2020, and then submit the receipts, and then the state writes a check back. That's how we've done it in different districts. We've done this twice for the security grant.
2020 budget begins July 1st.
Correct, but there's work if it passes and we have funding, because the no mean no still applies here. So if our warrant doesn't pass, but there is a portion of the work that we could start, and that's in the warrant article. Out of this year, the 60,000, we could start the architectural fees and all
Yep.
those things that need to be done, with the hope of being set up to do the full project over the summer, and then have it ready by the time the students return in the fall.
Other questions? Betsy?
So if you're taking the 60,000 from money this year, wouldn't this be fiscal 2019? Is that 18?
It's the residual from this year, is it not?
This year's
you're right.
budget before the end of June?
Because fiscal year 18's over.
18's over, so we're on 19.
Could somebody take that note for me, kind of up here? Yeah, so we would modify that.
Other questions? Okay, so we've had some discussion. We've got a fairly good idea of what it is that they're wanting to do. They're going to come back, research some additional information based on a few of the questions, so we can readdress this Wednesday night when we come back, and we'll go from there. Make sense?
Yeah, I agree. The other question I would have is for folks like Michael, who may not have had as much time in the school as I have, and I don't think there's anybody here who's had
Yeah.
as much time in the school as I am, except maybe Betsy. Or is the school visitable between now and Wednesday?
For those particular areas
By members of
that
the
may
budget
be
committee.
affected.
Sure. Come on over.
Short and sweet, huh?
So Michael, if you have an opportunity and you want to go down and see the area that they're talking about, when you push the buzzer and you tell them who you are and whatever, just say you budget committee member wanting to see.
Okay.
And then somebody will get you. It never hurts to call ahead just to see if they're having a crisis or a party or,
Right.
you know, that kind of thing. They might have a
The
party.
response to the party from behind you is very funny.
There are no crises or parties.
Oh, bummer. Okay, so are we all set on Article 3? We'll readdress that come Wednesday night when we get some additional information. Okay. Brad, you may rejoin us, my friend.
I didn't want to be an obstacle.
I hear you. I hear you. We appreciate it. Okay.
Article 4 has been voted on by the school board, and I apologize for, I must have fallen asleep on the break and got confused when we came back, but,
We actually have numbers for you folks to write in there.
okay. Next to the year 2019, 2020, we do have some, and they're on down, we have numbers.
So, folks, if you have your pens out, I can give you some numbers to write in for
Go
those,
ahead.
for the standardization of those articles. The year 1920, the estimated increase is $49,162.96.
Is that 2020 to 2021 or,
That's 1920.
or 1920? Okay. And what was the number, excuse me again?
49.
49,163 is the number we should use.
Which is the one down below, okay.
Yep.
Yep.
And then the year 2 number, which is 20 to 2021, is 45,786. And then the year 3 number, which is the years 21 to 22, is 42,031, or I'm sorry, 032. If I might continue,
Please do.
the tentative agreements are in your NESPA CBA section of your binder, and those will show all of the language changes and other modified items within the contract. And if you'd like Mr. McGuigan and I to walk you through those, we'd be happy to do that.
I think that would be a good idea. Huh?
I have just a general question, because maybe I didn't either read it correctly or maybe I didn't understand it. But there's an Appendix A, which is the salary schedule 1718, and then 1819, and then 1920.
So are you looking in the,
I'm looking in
under
the,
the
well, I guess I'm looking at,
NESPA contract?
I'm looking at the 17 to 20 contract, so there's a separate one?
You're wrong, you're looking at teachers.
Under a different tab.
Is
Look
that
at the
Did
tabs,
you,
tab,
did you
tab.
give out a new teacher's?
So the one that says NESPA. giving SBA. That's the documentation we're reviewing now.
I think people are looking for an actual contract, and that is not ready yet. What you have are the tentative agreements.
Oh, okay, that's,
So the tentative agreements are written off the so the contract largely remains the same, except for the changes outlined in those TAs. So negotiations for the paraprofessionals only closed on Wednesday. I have made the changes to the contract, but I haven't vetted it yet and didn't feel comfortable presenting it to you. It will be ready for your hearing, but you have the changes in the contract listed in the tentative agreements.
Good question.
Hold on.
Also,
Betsy?
Okay. Since we're just getting this today, I would like to go through all the pros and cons and stuff, and then have at least until Wednesday to think about it, or when do you think the contract would be done up, so we can look at that?
No, we're not going to hold off until the contract, and you said that that won't be ready until, for Wednesday.
Process here. So I need to have my office vet it, and then it needs to go to the board,
Okay.
and then it can come to you. So
I just don't want to
Wednesday, I
vote on
don't
something
think.
today that we just got this morning. I don't
Yes.
think that's right.
So Wednesday wouldn't be, I don't think would be a reasonable expectation to have a contract. Right.
that should, the board.
Could we get highlights of just
Yeah.
of the changes?
I think it's a little bit crossed out.
It is
Well,
highlighted.
yeah, okay.
Wait, he could just run through this.
I just meant like,
Yep, I can walk right through it if you'd like, both of us, we'll trade off.
unless other people don't want to do that, because around me people are saying they're highlighted.
All right, so let's walk right through from the first page to the last. So, Article 5D, there was a modification to the language, allowing us to use electronic versions of the policy manual rather than print one up, which can be a little laborious, although they can have one upon request. Article 8D1, the old contract referenced a paraprofessional staff development growth plan. Well, that was modified years ago to be the SAU 44 Professional Development Master Plan. So we made that language change. We got the association to agree to a 60-day probationary period for new employees, where we wouldn't have to follow the provisions of the contract if somebody wasn't working out, and we would be able to release our relationship with them. Article 8B3, it has to do with the contract intermittently and with not a lot of logic, use the word evaluation and observation in different places in a misaligned way. So in an attempt for us to align the contract and the expectations for the administrators and the staff, we clarified some language of what the difference between an evaluation and an observation was. And you'll see under that is the old paragraph. Also in that paragraph was if an employee didn't agree with an observation, they could have another person observe them. We got the association to agree to remove that clause.
Okay.
It was referred to as the Mulligan Clause, actually, at one point. So we negotiated that out of the contract. In Article 8B4, it used to say if any employee is found to be unacceptable, we thought it was important to put if any employee's performance was found to be unacceptable. If we go on to page 2, again, from that deleted paragraph, that's just a carryover where we're able to clarify that an improvement plan will be based on the needs recognized during observation and evaluation. Underneath that, under number 3, improvement plan, the previous contract said the improvement plan will be established with an offer. It should have been with a union officer. So we corrected that. In Article 8C4, previously, actually, I'm going to have Ms. Young explain this one because she is very articulate.
So the section refers to a complaint made about the section refers to a complaint made about an employee, and previously it said if the person making the complaint chose not to participate. So for example, if I got an anonymous letter or phone call indicating an issue, but then they chose not to participate and provide any more information, the complaint automatically just went away. Our concern was, well, what if it did happen, whatever the complaint was about, does it still go away? So this clarifies that if we can substantiate it in another way, even if the person making the complaint chooses not to proceed, we can still go on with disciplinary measures if we need to.
So moving on to Article 10C. The first two changes there are really just changes in the wording, about the number of days notice for personal days and how many days you get. They actually haven't changed, just the wording's been updated there. And the other thing is that we had a clause in there about having a maximum number of 3 people out on days that extended a vacation or something like that. And we just extended that to all days so that we didn't have a mass exodus at the school and have lots of people taking personal days at the same time.
Could you tell me what a paraprofessional is?
So the former name for paraprofessional would have been a teacher's aide, but we've shifted away from that word because they're really for students. And so the term paraeducator or paraprofessional could be intermittently used.
Okay, thanks.
If we go down to training days or equivalent hours, this actually was an idea that started with me. I'm trying to build some flexibility within the calendar to be able to convert training days to hours if I need to shorten the calendar due to snow days. So the employee, if we had a teacher work day where they were scheduled and we needed to cancel it, if I can have the contracts aligned, I can have the employee do an outcome-based activity and document the hours for that, and then submit that to the building principal, and that will substitute for that time. Again, Article 13C1 has to do with just cleaning up language. Article 13D, there is a paraprofessional and a paraeducator translation there, but the big issue is aligning how we pay people with labor rules and labor department rules. And so this is a clause that we've got some help with from the attorney that actually does that and allows them to be paid a certain way with a lot of delineation from the law. The one thing we did agree to on page 4 is to take a look at longevity, and the board agreed to add a $1,600 longevity payment for an employee who's worked 26 or more years within the district.
Wow.
So,
Yeah, it's really an increase, right, because you already had the 1,300 for the 20 to 25.
question on that?
Hal?
So I never really understood how that works. Is that a permanent increase in their salary, or is it a one-time payment, or what is it?
It's a permanent increase in their salary. It's a one-time payment each year. It's not calculated into their paycheck.
It doesn't, I'm sorry for being dense in this. So the first year, if it's $1,500, they get $1,500. Then the next year they get $1,500 plus another $1,500.
No.
No, it's not cumulative. It's a yearly. So if let's say that I am a paraprofessional at 20 years. So first year I get $1,300. My 21st year I get $1,300. My 22nd year I get $1,300, and so on. It's not
Got it.
cumulative.
Okay.
John?
I think that the word dollars should follow 400. It's just my opinion as a scholar. So that it says 400 upon completion. 400 what? And then, of course, you use the dollar sign. I'm down at the bottom of page 3.
Yeah.
Use the dollar sign within parentheses to indicate that you're talking about dollars. And to be grammatically accurate, you should say $400, parentheses, $400. You can take that advice and based on what you paid for it.
Yeah, the price of coffee and donuts.
Probably about 20, 25 hours of negotiations and getting it ratified by both the school board and the union. I'm not looking forward to going back and making any changes to that at this point, but in 3 years from now, if we get a new contract, that will definitely be something I will address. Yeah.
I have to say that the board got a lot of changes in this agreement and cleaned up a lot of confusion from previous years. And so there's always going to be things, and we'll remember in 3 years to get in touch with you to remind us what that was. And that, so if I can continue on page 4, Article 14A1. This is a Cadillac tax provision that our attorneys recommended that we add to make sure that if we ever got the consequences of a Cadillac tax on health insurance, that the cost of that would be shared equally between the employee and the district. Underneath that, there was what's called a parity clause in here before. So a parity clause means that something in your contract is contingent upon another contract, and that's not best practice. So your parity clause said they'll receive the same dental coverage as the Northwood Teachers Association. They do receive the same dental coverage as the Northwood Teachers Association, but we've gotten rid of that parity clause and added the details down below. Another thing the board did agree to is a certain, I think about 1/3 of your members, the membership, are retirement system eligible, meaning they work over 35 hours a week, so therefore we contribute on their behalf and they contribute to the New Hampshire State Retirement System. There's another group, 2/3, that don't have any form of retirement. And I believe the board's intent was to try to move people away from trying to save up time to leave the district with when it converts to money. In fact, we're pretty stalwart in their efforts to keep those increases from happening because they were part of the employees' presentation on negotiations. But the board did agree to a 1% match if an employee elects to enroll in one of the eligible tax-deferred 403Bs or tax-deferred annuities. The total cost for that item, worst-case scenario, is about $4,770 a year. And it requires the employee to participate in that plan, which they may or may not do, and they can contribute as much as they'd like, and the district will contribute 1% of their salary.
That's included in the cost of that.
Right, and that's included in the cost item.
Scott?
I just had a question, because I thought, because I happen to be in the New Hampshire retirement plan too, I thought there's a requirement that you said 1/3 of your employees are in New Hampshire retirement?
2/3.
So keep in mind. And this is just a contract for the paraprofessional union?
Yeah,
So
I
it's
know,
not a
but I
third of-
thought there's a requirement that if you had to be, all full-time employees had to be in the retirement system unless they were in there before the retirement system was started.
Over 35 hours a week is compulsory membership.
Oh, so these are ones that work less than 35 hours a week?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So those are the tentative agreements.
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go over them.
Go right ahead.
So on page 5 is just the date shift. And then on page 6, and somebody's going to ask me this question, so I'm going to be right up front.
There you go.
They had 15, they're going to ask what the percentage increase is. And so I'm going to be able to give you a 67% answer on that. So they had 15 steps in their contract. And there was agreement between the union and the board that, you know, once somebody reaches year 6, are they really that different performance-wise than year 15? I mean, you would hope somebody would be trained and up to date. So there was a shrinking of the steps. So 15 steps went down to 8 steps. In addition to that, there was differentials for the New England Center for Children tutors, an hourly differential. It turned out to be about $400 a year, I believe. And then there was a differential for the afternoon custodians, which is when they work anyway, of I think 50 cents an hour. So we took those and shrunk them and combined them into the hourly rates for those positions. So if somebody asked me in year 1920 what the percentage increase is over the current contract, I can't give you a specific answer about that because you've got so many factors going in. You shrunk the steps, you combine differentials. But I can tell you that 2021 represents a 1% and 2022 represents a 1.5% because I can base that off the model in 1920.
Why,
Point out as well that throughout this entire process, the union was very flexible and very cognizant of the amount of money they were going to be asking for in the warrant. And I think we both agreed right from the get-go that, you know, we want to keep it reasonable. And I think we got to that point. I mean, we're at a point where I think, you know, things, similar sized increases have passed the town in the, you know, recent past. And so they were very flexible and working with us to get us to those numbers again. So.
Hal?
I just want to make sure I understand the nomenclature. So 20 to 21, at least on mine, shows the 1% crossed out and initialed. So what does that mean?
That's not going to go, that won't be in the contract. So
Oh, but
that's
what it amounts.
That was just me taking notes.
Okay, so that's what it amounts to,
Right.
but it won't.
That's what it amounts to, but it's not going to be in their salary scale in their contract.
Okay.
So the reason I crossed through that in such a transparent manner is so
Okay,
people
well, I
can
just,
see it.
because you mentioned the number and I was thinking, well,
No, that's the number.
okay.
Other questions? Okay. Seeing no other questions, let's go back to the warrant article. We did get a motion and second, I just don't remember who the second was. I think we got, I know we got a motion.
Wasn't the motion to not,
There was no motion.
Yeah,
I
we're gonna
just
wait till
suggested-
Wednesday to do this, because they hadn't, didn't they say they had to do something? and-
That was on Article 3, I'm talking
Sorry.
about Article 4.
There was no motion.
There was no motion.
Okay, so,
I'd like to make a motion to move Article 4, and would you like me to read the entire article? Shall the Northwood School District approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Northwood Education Support Staff and the Northwood School Board covering the 3-year period from July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2022, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels over those paid in the prior fiscal year. For the year 2019-2020, an estimated increase of $49,163. For the years 2020-2021, an estimated increase of $45,786. For the years 2021-2022, an estimated increase $42,032. And to further raise and appropriate the sum of $49,163 for the 2019-2020 fiscal year, such sum representing the additional cost attributed to the increase in salaries and benefits over those of the appropriation at current staffing levels paid in the prior fiscal year. The school board recommends this appropriation by a 5-0 vote.
Second.
okay, so Betty seconded. Do we have further discussion? Dan?
Well, Betsy said that she wanted to hold off. Did you change your mind on that?
I'm wondering, what do others want to do? Because you just handed this morning.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
You know, do you want a few days to look at it? It's up to you.
Okay, so I would bring up the question, we've just gone through all of the TAs. Nothing amounted to money. I'm just bringing up a point. It's up to the will of the committee. Keep in mind, we're going to have a lot to do. So I'm prepared to vote on this now, but that's me. Are there questions pertaining to the first of all, questions pertaining to the article itself, not whether we're doing it today, but the article itself?
I just want to say that this is a collective bargaining thing between the school board and a union, and I'm fine with the summary, and I'd be ready to vote today. But I mean, I don't think if we're looking at just the money, I think they made some good concessions here, and I don't think we need to wait on this.
Other conversations? Linda?
Just to bring up a point of order, your
Please.
procedures do suggest that you have 7 days for new information. And I know that a lot of times you get information and it's updated at a meeting, but where this is all new information. Certainly the board can waive their own procedures, but I just wanted to mention that
Okay.
for the record.
Good point. Hal?
I'm sort of with Betsy on this. I think this is actually pretty good, and my gut feel is, actually, it's great. But I don't like the feeling of being stampeded, and so I'll tell you, if we vote on it today, my answer is going to be no.
Okay. Other comments, questions? Betsy?
I mean, I think they did a great job. I just think that we've got to be careful, and we did this for the town too. If we're handing something one day, we don't vote on it the same day. Have a chance to look at it. I think they did a great job, but I think waiting till Wednesday gives people a chance to look at it, digest it.
Okay, so seems to be the mood of the committee, so whomever made a motion in the second, if they would rescind them, and we'll move this to Wednesday's agenda.
Rescind the second.
I'll rescind my motion.
Okay.
I didn't hear. Was it rescinded?
Yes, it was rescinded.
May I suggest for the future that the route be that,
We take a vote.
that somebody amends the motion, vote on that, rather than the chair requesting people to rescind?
I'm a little foggy this morning.
What?
Can someone suggest to me what I'm supposed to be doing?
I think you're fine.
We're fine the way we are.
Okay.
So we're going to come back and vote on
We're
this?
going to come back, we're going to review this at home,
Wednesday.
and we're going to add this to what we're voting on Wednesday. Correct.
I think, if I may speak to the notion, I would much rather go to the voters with a unanimous support, because
Agreed.
if you don't approve contracts, if the voters don't approve contracts, although you're opening up,
Can of worms.
yeah.
And I think
So-
we have a lot of new numbers. It's only fair to them to have a chance to look at it.
Article 5, I think, is not one we need.
Right, that's not
address.
one we do.
So I'd like to move Article 6. Shall the Northwood School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $66,777, which represents 80% of the total salary and benefits for the creation of a school resource officer position. This article is contingent on the passage of a warrant article at the Town of Northwood annual meeting that will raise and appropriate the remaining 20% and will be null and void unless the article is approved by the town. The school board recommends this appropriation by 4-1 vote.
Second.
And Grace seconded. Any discussion?
Isn't there already a school resource officer?
This is
No.
for, there's a resource officer at Co-Brown. This is for a school resource
Okay.
officer at the elementary school.
Thank you.
Scott?
I didn't go, I had a conflict, but you had a public hearing to see how much support was for this.
We did.
How many people attended the public hearing?
Offhand, it was about 10 people.
How many people, other than elected officials?
8.
Well, if you had
Approximately.
10,
Well, we had two.
Very few. Is that your
Let me-
point?
let me
David?
restate that. So we had 4 school board members, and we had a neighboring resource officer who spoke about his duties. And in attendance, other than at the table in the audience, there was approximately 10 people, 2 of which were select board members.
Okay.
And that's an estimate. I don't
So
remember.
would that be safe to say that there wasn't big public support for this?
I wouldn't extrapolate that there's not big public support for this.
Showed up?
I'm not gonna say already made up their mind that they're gonna pay.
Yeah.
Or perhaps they didn't hear about it.
It's not an appropriate conclusion to draw from the attendance
Exactly.
of anything in this town.
Exactly.
It's like,
I
how many,
agree.
for example, how many people showed up for candidates night and how many people came out to vote? Well, 2,000 people came out to vote, and this room was pretty well attended,
I
but
was
that's
just
a
saying-
whole smaller percentage than 2,000.
I was just saying, when the selectmen did put this on a warrant article, but one of the things is, we asked to see, have a public hearing to see if there was actually support for this. I'm just saying, okay, I'm fine with that, my question is.
Well, I mean, I can say in terms of judging from our hearing, a majority of the people in the audience were in support or voiced expressions of support, but obviously, 8 members of the public, it's really hard to extrapolate what the whole town will see. So, I mean,
Well, we'll vote on it, so we'll know what the town will say, but what were the results of the meeting? The people that were there expressed support.
most people did. I'd say there were a few people who expressed concern or had questions, rather critical of the officer, of the resource officer position.
Dan?
Our current resource officer uses one of the cruisers when they're at Cove Brown. Does this one get a car or drive the drone, or do they have to get in the cruiser involved? Or?
It's my understanding that there's a police cruiser available in the department that would be for this position.
Tom?
Can you say a little bit more about the duties of this person based on both what your expectations are as well as what you learned from the person who holds this position in another school?
Sure. So this person will be in the school with students, interacting with students as needed, taking care of policing duties as needed. They'll pick up the truant officer responsibilities. They'll pick up the crossing guard responsibilities. Likely they'll pick up, we run DARE at the moment, so they'll pick up DARE education program, as well as counseling responsibilities and public outreach. So, and if anyone else has more to add to that.
I'd like to ask Officer Wells for his thoughts on this, since you have some expertise in public safety.
Absolutely. So just having the officer there, it's a presence. It's a deterrent. So having the cruiser there, having the officer inside the building, that's a huge benefit to beef up our security of the school. Secondly, the biggest thing is a mentor and a counselor to the students. Having that interaction with the students, interaction with parents, interaction with the community is a huge benefit all around, not only for the school, but for the town as a whole. On the DARE program, right now, Officer Gavoni and myself only are in the school teaching DARE, but we can definitely expand it more. There are so many more programs that the DARE program can teach. Internet safety, bullying, all the way from K through 8. Right now, we're only in there doing 5th and 6th grade for DARE. So we'll be the officer will be doing additional classes. I also seen other resource officers teach health classes. And then you could give classes on CPR. There's many things that could be expanded that the resource officer could do. And if I know Officer Wayne Stevens, he's been that did a presentation. His biggest thing is just the fact that the interaction with the kids and knowing their names. I've been with this school for in this department for 13 years, been teaching DARE for 9 years, and you know how heartbreaking it is when I forget the child's name because I'm not in the school all the time. I remember them, And I was like, oh, they'll say, hey, Officer Wells, and I'll say, hey, how you doing? And I don't remember his name. And if you have an officer in there knowing every kid's name, how much more respect they're going to have for you going home to their parents and interaction with police officers outside as well. So that's a huge benefit as well. So if anybody has any more questions, I'm sure they're...
Can I just jump in? Mr. Burns shared with me a picture from the presentation we gave at the public hearing on the slide for SRO program goals. Provide a safe learning environment in our schools, provide valuable resources to school staff members, fostering positive relationships with youth, developing strategies to resolve problems affecting youth, protect all students so that they can reach their fullest potentials. Thank you, Mr. Burns.
Madam Chair, if I could just clarify the response from Mr. Wells was as a police officer or as school board member?
I would probably say that's from both. I'd say that...
Just clarifying, because that's...
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. I would probably say that was from law enforcement because it was definitely, from the heart. As a school board member, I want a law enforcement officer in there because we've been talking about beefing up security of this school for years. And when we're trying to do it, as you look, we're asking for $250,000 because we want to know that our children are safe.
I think one other place where this ties in, as far as I see, is the fact that you've got a fire department, an emergency crew operating right next to your school. And I'm wondering, it's got to be helpful if somebody who's a resource officer can help with traffic issues or other things related to the fact that that building and those folks are operating right next to the school. Would you comment on that?
Hopefully it won't be right next to the school.
Yeah, they won't be.
Well, if we get the safety complex, they won't be next to us.
In the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of wondering where you're going with that question, like helping the fire department with...
Well, if this person is also going to serve as a person who's going to help with traffic out on Route 4, the implication would be if fire department, for some reason, needs help with traffic on Route 4, this person might be available.
The fire department has their own lights, and they've never really needed our assistance to get in and out. But it'd be, yeah, if they needed us, absolutely, they could we could let the officer help.
Bob?
I just would have one question. The board was a 4-to-1 vote. Can you give us some insights into the person who voted against this? Not the individual, but was it financial, or was it just the position itself?
He's raising his hand out back there.
I voted against this
Is
proposal.
Dave Ruth?
Dave Ruth, the board member. I represent the school board, and I represent, and that, as a school board member, I've always been, it's 50-50 for what the children need and what the town can really afford. I really can't see a monetary benefit for this. I think it's just an overspend. And I have a grandchild. I have 3 kids that went through that school. But I can't justify that those kids the children are going to be safer by having a police officer in there. I can't justify the cost of that. I could justify the cost of kindergarten because I thought the children would get a benefit from that. I don't think they get a real benefit by spending this extra money.
Brad and then me.
Can you, this is apparently a shared resource. Can you clarify how that's going to work? Is this a police department employee or is this a school employee? Who hires and fires?
It's, I can speak for the town side. We put the warrant article in it because of my understanding, because they can only be at the school. The school can't pay for the whole thing because a portion of his time when the school's closed, he will be working part-time shifts and so forth. He or she, we don't know, assume, will be working part-time shifts down at the fire station, so the school can't bear the whole cost of it.
So it's a police department employee then?
Yes.
Yes, it has
We'll
to
let
be.
Mr. Rooney give us a
Has to be.
further explanation as well.
It is a police department employee, and the reason that it needs to be a police department employee is that it's a police officer position supervised by the police department in their group of the retirement system, right? So the cost needs to be billed back to the school district. The 20% has to do with the summer months. And that during the summer months or during periods of school recesses, not outside but like holiday breaks and this and that, that the officer would be under the employee of the police department at that time.
Okay. I'm going to make a quick comment first of all, because I haven't had a chance to speak yet. And then Michael and then Tom.
Well, my question is just to do what he just said.
Okay, go ahead.
Is that the same arrangement that Co-Brown resource
Co-Brown.
officer?
Co-Brown's a different animal. They're a semi-private school, so they pay 100%. And because they are semi-private, they pay the town, and then the town pays Officer Potter, so she could be in group 2. So it's a total different animal. You can't, yeah,
Does she work for the town during the summer?
negative. She only works at
She only
Co-Brown
works
180
in-
days a
in
year.
the school, okay.
And she has other contractual obligations as well.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to offer my thoughts on this. It seems to me that this is equally a reactive type thing to what's been going on, unfortunately, in other parts of the country. And, you know, if some kid decides that he's going to bring something to school that he shouldn't, or someone from the public comes into the building when they shouldn't. But it's also proactive. This individual's job description is going to be including interacting with kids and perhaps being on the front lines of being able to diffuse bullying situations or situations that get out of hand. A fight in a cafeteria at a school somewhere just recently broke out between 2 kids and 5 kids got stabbed, which wasn't the intent of the fight, but it led to that. And in my mind, having a professional there can potentially alleviate those kinds of opportunities. It just goes to the safety of the building. I don't want to be the town in New Hampshire that waits until we have a bad incident to say, oh yeah, gee, we had a chance to do that and we didn't. That's my viewpoint. Tom, I think you had some comments you wanted to make.
I think the thing I wanted to go back to was the way in which the 20% that would be available to the police department could be very useful during spring breaks and summertime to help with staffing issues that arise because of vacations and other demands on the personnel at the police department. So I don't see it as simply that there wouldn't be anything for that person to do to contribute to the activities of and staffing of the police department.
Other discussion? Comments?
Just to add to his,
Betsy?
when the chief presented this, that was one thing he brought up, is it would help ease the vacation time during the summer and stuff. Wouldn't necessarily be an extra person on vacations.
Or maybe reduce the overtime a little bit.
Right.
Any other discussion or questions? Okay.
Just another question.
Yes, Brad?
More of a curiosity. If this is the police department position in need, why wasn't this part of the police department, either a full-time warrant article or police department budget?
They had a warrant article for it.
They do.
Only for the other 20%.
Correct.
Well, they put a warrant article in, and the selectmen vote 3-0 on this. Like, the vote of the selectmen was 3-0, not to support it.
Right.
We said we'd put it on as a courtesy to let the people of the town decide if they wanted this.
Can I ask why the selectmen did not support it?
To select, because in actuality, there's
they'll move, there'll be a police officer in school, whether they take that from their existing resources or not. If there's a vacancy at the police department, they're fully intending of refilling that police position. So in actuality, it will add an additional employee to the town. Also, I have very concerns this year because we're trying to go for a safety complex, and I think that it just seems to me that this is like a lot of things in the budget. I think we're asking for too much in 1 year.
I'm not personally. Can I make a statement as
Yes, go right
a
ahead.
school board member who voted in favor of this, just to throw that perspective out there? I mean, we talk about security a lot, but for me, the deciding factor was more the relationship building with the community. Having a police officer on staff year-round who's going to be at summer events that the kids will run up to and recognize, that will introduce their parents to, that, I mean, it's an extra experience to me that's kind of immeasurable of how much negative impact on the town will deflect by having these kind of relationships. So to me personally, as a school board member, I felt we want to have the security, we want to have someone there to take on these already policing activities, but the benefit is just a great benefit to the community. And that's why I was in favor of it. So, thank you.
Betty?
I'm with Ryan, because I remember parents telling their kids, if you don't behave, I'm gonna call the police and you're gonna go to jail. And that brings fear to kids. They're afraid of police officers. They're not going to go to them if they need something. This is exactly the opposite. And I think it's important to do it. And I don't have kids in the Northwood school system, never have, probably never will. Well, it could be grandkids.
You know, and I was wondering.
Yeah.
Hal, you had a comment?
Yeah, I'd just like to sort of echo what Betty said, and quite frankly, if I was out of or very short of money and had to choose, I'll just be blunt, between Article 3, which is the school changes, and this, I think we get better bang for our buck. I guess, Dave, I would disagree with you. I think we do get better bang for our buck with number 6, and it is a reflection of society. I think the kids don't get everything they need at their homes, and we need to support them.
Bob?
I was just going to make a comment on the back of Betty's. Looking at it from the flip side, when we saw adding the SRO to the high school, is that it helps the police department themselves begin to understand problems of youth within the community. That there was, I wouldn't say antagonistic, but there was a difficulty between the town's police and high school students. And the SRO helped to bridge that gap. And I think the same thing may happen. I mean, we're fortunate because we happen to have a police officer on the school board, but I think it would be helpful from the flip side of the police department also beginning to see what's going on within the elementary school age children.
Grace?
I want to offer my perspective as someone who spent pretty much her entire career working in the movement to end violence against women and knows a lot about domestic and sexual violence and what goes on in homes. And the benefit of having a police officer who seems like a safe resource in an elementary school, I think is huge. I mean, I would not be surprised if after a period of time there were disclosures to that police officer. That would, in the long run, really help a child and a family, so. I mean, safety goes beyond someone coming into the school. The biggest threat to a child's safety is what goes on in their home, and having someone safe in the school who can do something about it, I think is really important.
Yes, Mike?
I do have one question. Cole Brown has this in place. Do we know the pros and cons? And I don't need an answer, but I'm just thinking out loud.
The only thing I could say is that it's been in place for many years, and Co-Brown is not an organization that continues to do things that don't work. That's the best I can do.
No, thank you.
Yes. Mr. Wood.
So I have a unique perspective, and in my previous position within SAU 44, I had a very close relationship with Co-Brown. I can tell you that Officer Potter is a wealth of information and support at times, in my experience. And I hope that helps answer your question.
I just didn't know if it was positive towards the students, or I mean, the way we're talking for the elementary.
Jane?
I'll give a quick story that I mentioned at the SRO presentation. Officer Potter was noticing some changes in this one person at the school, very depressed, very down. She didn't show up to school one day, Officer Potter, and just knew that something was wrong. Went to her house and had to tackle her because she had a gun to her head. She was going to kill herself. So that right there is just a huge benefit because Officer Potter knew that something was wrong. So the interaction with kids, especially what you were talking about, domestic violence, the sexual abuse, the child abuse, that goes on that's not reported, an officer can see that. And that's a huge benefit.
That answers my question, thank you.
Tom?
I'd like to ask the principal to speak to your enthusiasm or lack thereof about having this additional resource.
I will echo what Ginger and Shane both said, in that I think the preventative aspect of having a school resource officer in the building is huge. We want to be able to respond in the event of an act of violence, but we also want to prevent students from getting to that point where they feel the need to act violently in order to be seen or heard or get their message across. And we do, I mean, we're fortunate to have many kids who come from solid families and get support at home, but we also have a good population of students who don't have that. And we do already utilize the police department and appreciate their support, and I think that being able to expand that and formalize that would be of great benefit to Northwood students.
Thanks.
Do we have other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. We have a motion and second.
Who seconded?
Grace. Grace did. Okay. So we will go with a roll call vote. Betsy?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes?
Dan?
Yes.
Grace?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Hal?
Yes?
Ted?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Scott?
Say hello to the bad guy, no.
Hi, bad guy.
Should I?
No.
Well,
I mean,
no,
I
no,
would-
no,
the
we're
selectmen
finishing the
voted that
vote.
way.
We're
No,
finishing
he's
the vote.
representing the
He's
select.
representing the selectmen. And they voted no.
And yes. So that article is approved by recommended by the Budget Committee, 14-1. And that, folks, brings us to the end of our warrant articles today. So just checking the agenda. Linda, we didn't have any internal business that I was aware of, do we?
Did we vote to accept the resignation?
Yeah, we did that at the last
We
meeting.
did that. And the only other thing I have is a reminder, I know it's early, but wanted to get it out there that we'll have 6 openings on Budget Committee.
Okay, so hold that. I could have sworn we voted on that that letter of resignation.
John Boudreau?
We read it.
No, we didn't
No,
do
I saw it
anything
on
with
the agenda, but
We did not accept his resignation?
I thought we had.
yeah,
You
we
want to
left
do it
early.
again, just in
We'll
case?
do it again, just in case.
I make a motion that we accept John Boudreau's letter of recognition and appreciate his service to the Budget Committee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second with Betty. All those in favor of accepting John's resignation with regret and appreciation, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we are now, she's done with that one.
Why did he resign? Why did he resign?
And
Why
Linda,
did
you
he
stated
resign?
that we have 6 folks. Just so we can actually maybe make it by noon. Linda, you mentioned that there is going to be 6 openings in March for the Budget
Yes.
Committee.
Ginger, Betsy, Hal, Ed, Brad, and Joe McCaffrey.
Okay, so those of us who just heard our names or know that you're going to need to sign up should you wish to continue all the fun that we have. So at the next meeting, Wednesday night, I'd like to start promptly at 7. We've got a lot to do that night. I'd like to start off with the school first so that we can release all of the school people.
To point out, I think a number of us might not be able to make it on Wednesday, but we will have some representation.
Well, we can, yeah.
And as far as the SAU, Mr. Byrne will be joining you.
That's fine.
whatever.
Basically, we're just waiting on the school board
You're
to be
gonna-
able to vote so that we can.
Yeah, you're going to look at, yes, you're going to be acting on the special ed section because that contains the preschool. You're going to be acting on the SAU budget and then these hanging warrant articles.
Correct. That's it. So that's my thought, that we'll start off with, finish off the school because that night is posted for both school and town. The town could take a little bit longer and a lot of these people that will be coming, they can get out a little earlier.
And what do we need to do for the town? The fire
The
department?
town, we need to do
Just the fire department.
fire department,
Oh, yeah.
And their warrant.
and we have,
We don't, we won't have the number for the safety complex yet.
no, but, if you're going to bring forward a warrant article regarding the safety equipment,
Yeah,
That's the
the
only.
air pack.
we need to discuss that, and hopefully the fire department has done as requested and prepared some information for us so we know what we're looking at, as well as I would like answers to the questions I had asked. Yes.
I thought they were supposed to get that to us for today.
Yes, that was the intent, but
I
it
actually
didn't
brought
happen.
that up, but they have to go, we can't because they have to go through the selectmen on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So we can't really have anything till Wednesday.
In the other, if I may, just to give you a
Please.
little, we, why is he shaking his head back there? Oh, I was just putting out there, if we were to go out, the price tag on that is $250,000, which I think is too big for the town to swallow right now with all the other stuff. We're trying to see, we're talking to several leasing bank options where we can do a 5-year lease purchase, so you pay a fifth a year. So we're still finalizing those numbers.
So hopefully we will be able to address those also on Wednesday night, and at least get an overview of what that warrant article, the type of equipment and the need and all of that stuff, whether we have the numbers or not, we still need to have an understanding of what it is they're asking for money for. Grace?
So we can understand the process. We won't be voting yet on the warrant article about the safety complex because we don't have the numbers.
Because we don't have the firm
When
number.
does that happen?
That will happen on probably January 3rd, which is our cleanup night. It's going to take another week or so, perhaps a week and a half, before they have the
We just
final
hired-
number.
Several weeks ago, we just hired a company to, is gonna be like the project manager if the warrant article passes. And they're actually crunching the numbers right now. It's quite, so that we can have this is basically a do not exceed number. So we want to make sure we have a solid number that,
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the process. Will there be anything else? Well, we don't know if there's other stuff left by then,
Well,
by January 3rd.
oh, there shouldn't be any more, other than the fire equipment
Yeah.
and the safety complex. I don't think there'll be anything else coming from the town.
January
And
3rd,
the
there will be
revenue,
Yeah.
the revenue
year-end
warrant.
Oh,
totals.
yeah, the revenue.
And we
But
may
that's
have-
kind of a-
Okay.
We may have those year-end totals for January 3rd. More likely, we'll meet for the first 5 minutes or so of the public hearing night the following week, just to vote those articles.
Okay.
That's the transferring of recycle fees coming in to, you know, those kinds of things, so. Did I miss anything? I don't think so. So we need a motion to recess
So moved.
until December 12th. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Can sit here by themselves.
They can.